A clean slate, 2 splits becoming 1. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the Simrigs Sprint Series North American Finals. The first of 3 rounds here tonight at Donington Park. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Amone, and I want to welcome you to tonight's broadcast. I am joined, surprisingly, by Mr. Sam Raworth here in the booth. Sam, how's it going there, bud?
Oh, it's going great, you know, just watching everyone get their laps in, getting ready for this interesting race when we combine the groups.
Yep, we had, so to kind of explain the whole split merger for those who may or may not be aware, there was sort of an issue with attendance in North America splits, so what we decided for the finals was to just take both of those, take North America Red and Blue, and turn them into one massive split that contains somewhere in the realm of, oh, I don't know, 53 drivers, and 31 have marked attendance, and 28 have showed up, so we're just missing a couple, but I don't know, I like this. I think I'm going to like this big split.
Yeah, hopefully it gives everyone sort of an idea of what it was, and, you know, AP and some of their big races. You have just a lot more battles going on throughout the whole pack, especially at a track like this where it's relatively small anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be very chaotic to see how drivers handle this. We had a pretty good race in EU earlier today. We only had about 15 drivers, but they still gave us a good showing throughout. Some periods of downtime, of course, but overall they did, you know, pretty good. A lot of tight racing, some fun moments near the end. Of course, someone ran out of fuel, but we won't talk about that. But what we got to talk about is the final standings, quote unquote, for the regular season across Blue and Red. So looking at North America Blue, of course, Dornelis on top. He had well over 700 points. The man's an absolute unit. Followed by Portis and then Fernandez. In the Pro-Am category, it was Clifford, Boisvert, Frizza, and then top of amateur class. I don't know if you've heard of this guy before, Sam. He goes by, like, Rawworth or something. He was apparently top of amateur class by a single point. Campbell and No were also on that podium. Have you ever heard of that guy before?
No, sounds dumb.
Yeah, probably one of those paid drivers. not one of those talented drivers like we have. And then over in red, it was Hamza Golzar atop his pedestal, as is the usual. Then it was Sanchez and Marquez. And then for Pro-Am, Brown, Lanham, Briscoe. Amateur was Platt, Luke, and Doring. So a lot of those heavy hitters coming in here, especially, I know I've talked about wanting to see Golzar and Dornelis go at it, and it looks like we might be getting that here tonight. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially with, the other people just around them at sort of the top end there. We may not see just one person splitting off into the sunset like we have the last season of both these splits.
Yep, Timothy Flomger, of course, could throw a wrench into the mix. Thomas Pierce as well. Lawrence Lanham, I know we talked about him second place in Pro-Am, but wouldn't be surprised if he gave all these pros a pretty difficult time. We have Love Rank as well, very consistent driver. Brown, incredibly talented. Palladini, I mean, you can go through the whole grid for God's sakes, but that's just, to name a few of the really big drivers.
Yeah, and it looks like for qualifying, right now it's greasy out there, so we'll see lap times a little bit lower than we expect, at least until that changes.
Yeah, we did have a damp track at the start. Timings are kind of messed up, so we started quali a bit earlier than I would have expected, but no problem there. You can see that dry line as we watch Cody Platt out for, I assume, an out lap, possibly a flying lap. But the last time we actually raced at this circuit was almost 2 years ago, July 22nd of 2021. We did have two splits in North America in the blue split. The pole time was set by Nicholas Alvarado with a 1:25.66.8, and that was in the Honda. So not too far off. We have Hamza Golzar second place. Over in EU, we had Simon Bauer on pole, sort of lights to flag business for him. And then for the red split, it was Curtin Liu with a 1:25.88.7, also in the Honda. So, let's see, pole lap right now, 31:22. So, greasy track conditions are going to give that to you, but still a very respectable time.
Yeah, well, we see our sort of main names not up at the top. We know that there's time to be gained here. And 5 minutes isn't a great amount of time, but laps aren't very long here either, so you do have a chance to go back in and make some changes if you need to.
Yep, and those greasy race surfaces and even the curbs will definitely give drivers a bit of worry as they head around. I don't want to brag or anything, but I was actually here the last time we raced, and I finished 14th, and I think I started like 24th or something. I had no strategy. So maybe I was just that good. Who knows? I couldn't do it now.
Well, speaking of strategy, that's the big question for this week's races, isn't it? I mean, these are 70 minutes, I believe. And you have, I believe, one required pit stop, but you don't need to take tires, and you do need to fuel. So potentially, like an endurance race, you could go for almost a 70-minute, single stint. You could pull in, get a splash and dash, and head back out there if you think that'll work. Or you can come in about halfway. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but strategy does actually play a game in today's race, whereas in other sprints, it's really just not as powerful.
Yeah, I was earlier today with the EU broadcast, actually. Glenn Germain came in, Peabody, great guy, one of our, just pride and joys of OR, technical man. He was explaining that actually in AP, what some drivers were doing was they were going out for these extremely long stints, and then they would put 1 liter of fuel in and get back out there, and that's only 3 seconds. So, Sam, you might be right in that regard. Some guys in EU definitely went extremely long on their stints.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking at this race, when I was going to have time to practice, I thought, I was thinking about doing that because I had just come off of a enduro, from Imola. And these 70-minute stints aren't really that big of a deal to me anymore. I can sort of handle it, even with the tires. And I think for a back marker, that does give you, more of an option to choose when you go into the pits as far as where traffic might be, and what traffic you're getting out to. There's just a lot of things that it could help with at sort of all levels of the game.
Yeah, exactly. I know once you kind of get in that rhythm of doing, because the stints are what, 90 minutes in those like long endurance races?
70.
70. Okay. So yeah, you're basically transferring it, but if you have I know when I think when I did it it was like an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 30, something like that. But yeah, when you have the practice of doing such long stints, I mean, something like this doesn't really bother you all that much.
Well, yeah, and you also learn, what your car, if you keep the same car, obviously, in sprints versus enduro, which I do, but not everyone does. But you can learn, how long your car can last and at what level of tire degradation and brake degradation, all that stuff from enduros, and then come in and do really well in the sprint races because it allows you to sort of play with something you otherwise wouldn't have had the knowledge of. You just practice hot laps.
Exactly. And I don't know, when it came to practicing for Donington Park, I don't know how many drivers were actually accustomed to it, but it's certainly going to be a challenge for some. I know this track doesn't really get run all too often.
There is a lot of hate for this track, although it seems to be pretty much circled around the final hairpin section. Which I don't really mind. It's a really difficult section to get, whereas the rest of the track sort of has this really nice flow to it, I feel. And so obviously I would prefer the flow as far as, hot lapping and how fun it is, but if you really want to try to pass somebody and try to gain positions, you kind of have to do it in those hairpins.
Absolutely. That was really kind of the big overtaking spot I saw in EU. Just because of how wide it is and really how much run-up you have, it's very, very easy to just take a move down the inside and just plant yourself right on the apex, and there's really nothing the other car can do.
Yeah, it's just so easy to miss the line a little bit, and even if you're ahead, suddenly lose for the entire next straight your ability to defend. And since there's 3 straights in a row, it's pretty much game over if you mess one up.
Yeah, you just lose all that speed, and the other person on top of possibly a slipstream, maybe they get a better exit. Yeah, you could be toast before you even get to the corner.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the nice thing though is that those other straights are not so long as to, make it hard for, let's say, the Porsche compared to like Paul Ricard. It's not the worst thing.
Exactly, and we're getting to the final 30 seconds or so of qualifying. I saw Renato Dornelis on an absolute banger of a lap that immediately gets bested by Skylar Loverink. So now that this track is getting drier, it's still greasy of course, but now that the track is really starting to dry up, we're seeing a lot of those true times coming in. We'll see if that carries over into the race. Can't be too certain of course, but the checkered flag falls. Flomger right now, provisional pole at 28.73, only 12 thousandths ahead of Loverink. The 52 BMW we're looking at right now, and just ahead, I believe, that is Renato Dornelis, one of the drivers I am very keen on seeing throw the car around. Also, Gulzar down in 6th position. Wilson Fernandez, Dornelis' teammate, also in the Mercedes. Those guys, I mean, let me tell you, they have been on an absolute rampage throughout the season, just how quick they are. And it's almost like when you get to, like, they just get together, they somehow just boost each other, it feels like. I don't know if you've seen it, but that's what I've seen.
Well, yeah, I imagine it's got to be somewhat hard to just be out in front with nobody else around there. It's pretty similar to, being out and back with nobody around you. You don't really have that carrot to go chase after, or you don't have that stress to sort of keep you going. Now, I'm certain, these guys are skilled enough, they can sort of just keep going for hours like that, but it certainly isn't more fun without somebody around.
Yep, Stefano Palladini picks up provisional pole, 28.5. Fernandez up to 2nd. That's a really good improvement for him. Skylar Loverink, Renato Dornelis, 28.15. Loverink P2. So Portis could snatch this away, although I'm not too certain. It's going to be a questionable act, and unfortunately it doesn't work out, although does have a very respectable P5. And I think it's time for my favorite part of the race, at least one of my favorite parts. I think you know what it is, Sam.
I'm gonna guess we're gonna look at pretty colors and shiny objects.
Yes, sir, we are. I have to remember to turn off the autopilot so it doesn't be a bump. Alright, let's do it. For the, not the final time, but we got a couple more times after this before, well, it's over and done, but let's take a look at your starting grid. Look at all those cars. Look at how far back it goes. Just seems to go on for what feels like forever, but let's get this walk going. So, it's Dornelis, another pole for the Brazilian. How many times will we see that guy up there? Lovrink joins him on the front row. Splits him off from Palladini and Fernandez. Almost a top 3 lockout for Brazil. Kenneth Portis makes it into that top 5 in the Honda, so we're going to see a lot of fight out of him. Timothy Flomger, Spencer Brown, Javier Marquez, 6, 7, and 8. Hamza Gozar, a surprising P9 start for him. Not a driver we're typically seeing this far back, but maybe he forgot to practice, but that's okay. I'm sure he'll make do with what he's got. And then Sansano rounds out our top 10. From then on to 20, it's Pierce, Kogan, Sanchez, Rulo, Dag, Rasco, Wilson, Lanham, Clifford. A surprising P19 there for the Lamborghini driver, maybe a little bit out of his element. And then Braden Thompson out of Canada. And then behind him, it's a few more Canadians. He's got Wicks, No, and Hasser to keep him company. Keith Briscoe splits Kevin Parody off of that pack of Canadians. So he's a little bit of fish out of water, if you will. Cody Platt and Ryan Luke, 26, 27. And Dylan Kaiser rounds out the grid in position number 28. But man, some of these liveries have looked really, really good. And we're going to do another little rundown. We see some drivers opting to put the number on top of the car. We saw it in EU a little bit, and I think we saw Sanchez with a new livery. We'll have to see which waifu we put on it this time.
Something you got to point out right now, there's 30 seconds to get ready. They're going to hit drive soon, but we have rain predicted in 30 minutes. What do you do?
Ooh, that's true, but with the mandatory stop, yeah, we'll have to go for it. But then how long does it ride for? How long does it stay wet for? How long are you going to be on those wet tires? Do you get to pit again, or are you all set? We'll have to wait and see. It's Britain. It's going to be wet and rainy, just for how long?
Yeah, at the very least, it's thrown anybody's pre-race strategies right out the door.
Yep, and that's the beauty of OOR. You never know what's going to happen, but you can hear the engines starting to rumble and drivers pulling away, getting ready for the first parade lap they are going to be taking for the next 3 weeks. Of course, we'll have 2 rounds after this. Hungaroring and Barcelona are going to be up next on the chopping block. We'll see how drivers are going to handle that. It's going to be different formats every time, so we'll keep you updated when we get those. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for some action here at Donington Park. Of course, huge shout out to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 12 of the Octane Online Racing Sprint Series. Melbourne-based sim racing supplier servicing all of that big, beautiful continent and island of Australia and New Zealand as well. You get some love too, and if you're an OR Patreon member, you get 5% off your in-store purchases. Stuff's not cheap. Definitely use it. And if you're like me and Sam and you don't live on those nice little island nations, maybe you live in North America or EU, South America, Asia, Europe, whatever it may be, send them an email. They'll be more than happy to do some business with you. But again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 12. But we are out on track here. And look at that, rain in 30. Yeah, it's going to shake things up, I think, a lot.
Speaking of shaking things up, there's a big pile up in the back already. I think some confusion on where people are positioned or something, but they all seemed to stop a few turns ago.
Well, I think there was a bit of a delay in some of the drivers as they got ready to go out on track. So hopefully we get ourselves sorted out and we don't get any penalties for being out of position. That's another thing with this clean slate. So there are no points. We're basically running it as though we just started the season. So everybody gets a fresh start. Penalty points, I believe, have also been wiped. So for the first 70-minute race, it's going to be quite fun, I think. Especially 28 on the grid tonight. You see up ahead, we're already 2x2 as we get through the final chicane. I'm getting a little nervous, especially as we head towards that beautiful turn 1. Look at that. That's
and the 30-minute rain turned into 10-minute rain in the time it took them to get ready and do this lap. So we might be there closer than we thought.
Quite possibly, and you got to think, how long does that rain stick around? That's going to be the big question. Dornelis on pole from Lovering, Palladini, Wilson Fernandez. You can see him there in the sister Mercedes for Vacuum Racing. They're going to try to make some magic happen. Portis squeaks into the top 5, as he normally does. Flomger, Brown, Marquez, Sansano, Golzar in your top 10. Everyone else is going to follow suit. Ladies and gentlemen, we get over the timing line, and it's going to be green, green, green here at Donington Park. Lovering gets an amazing launch. Dornellis bogged down a little bit, down to turn number 1. We've got a Honda going off on the side. I couldn't quite see who that was. That may have been Rolu. As we get through turn 1, it's a lot of door-to-door action down the hill. We're going to be going on board here. Eduardo Sanchez. Just ahead of him, it's Tommy Kogan. Through the S's, these fast-flowing areas of the track, it's going to be very hectic with these almost 30 cars that have to navigate this tight circuit. It's not easy by any means, but it has been an incredible getaway for your front runners. Hit the pedal and get out of town. Sanchez looks for a move on the inside there of Kogan. Can't find anything that he's going to be able to use. Up the hill we go into the blind right-hander. This is a very tricky section to get right. It's all based off of feel. Timothy Flomger, P6 right now. Behind him, Kenneth Portis in the Honda, and I think the Honda we may have lost could have possibly been our man from Canada, Hamza Golzar, through the chicane. It's been a very good start, though, for everybody. I think William No, highest rated for amateur right now in P18.
Yeah, that certainly was Golzar going off in the back. He's moved past a couple of the back markers already, but one of the Mercedes that he's coming up to now also went off.
Sanchez is
and
around.
That seems to be... Yep. Getting a little nose boop too.
Yeah, everybody scrambling to dodge, and we had a couple that went into him and a couple of others that ended up sort of bumping into other people. William No, definitely one of them. So this race already not even a lap in, and we've got a lot of chaos. Look at Renato Dornelles, the gap he has to Lovering despite not getting the best start. He's found a lot of road to work with as we head down the hill. You can see all these drivers just giving it their all early on in the race, not even going to be waiting for what happens next. They want to get on with the show. They want to get on with it right now. So many cars here. It is incredible to watch. Battles all over the place. Timothy Flomger finding himself in the hot seat already. Marquez and Brown trying to chase him down, looking for any sort of opening they can go off of. 3 German manufacturers right now battling for this 6th position. You also have Sansano and Pierce as well, also looking to get in on the action, but for right now, they've got to be careful because they know, Sam, there's going to be rain coming in soon, and how long is that track going to stay grippy for those slicks?
Yeah, that's certainly true, and you're watching, you know, there was sort of an individual crash here or there, nothing really big, but that did already spread out the group a whole bit. And when you're spread out a little bit like this, that does even throw more into the strategy of when you put those tires on, because you can jump somebody or lag behind by a significant margin.
Exactly. It's crucial to time those pit stops just right, and especially here at Donington Park, it's not the longest pit stop time. It's relatively quick, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very long to do anything here at this track.
No, really. The laps are short, the pit stops are short. How long it takes you to fly off the track is pretty short. Yeah, I think that's one of the beauties of Donington, is just how quickly things can change in an instant.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's sort of the same with a lot of the British tracks, right? You know, Donington and even Brands Hatch and such. They're still just kind of quick, jerky tracks, it feels like. You get a little bit of the smooth curves every once in a while, but a lot of it feels almost like advanced autocross.
That's a very good way of putting it. I never thought about it like that. All right. So, Timothy Flomger flashing the lights on Marquez. I think there might have been some contact while you were talking there, Sam, but we'll see what happens if that gets redressed or not. But yeah, we got a lot of really good battles sort of forming right now. Dave Hasser has a rather terrifying Canadian behind him, and that's Hamza Golzar, and he probably knows just how quick Golzar is, especially how many times he's probably been blue flagged by that man right there in the 14. And then ahead
Where are they headed down right now? Into the super fun chicane? Or hairpin, okay.
Yep, hairpin.
So, actually, I was hearing with the chicane, right, because you can almost straight the whole thing and carry a bit more speed through there. Getting that wrong is also one of the major areas you need to look for overtaking. Because if you get it a little bit wrong and you have to correct as you're going through that chicane, it's going to slow you down all the way into the next section.
Yeah, that's actually true. We saw it a little bit in the EU split earlier today. Drivers trying to get as much time out of it as they could, and just a little miscalculation, and that sent him off. Sanchez out of the pits, so he's going to be dealing with his probably damage from earlier rain. Still 10 minutes out, but we'll see if it comes down, because it was supposed to be raining in 30, but unless it's caught sort of in that awkward void, it's probably not going to be coming anytime after that 10 minutes. Gulzar looks down the inside here of Dave Hasser, getting maybe a little impatient with his compatriot for position 18. He wants to get this move done.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming right into the right position to do it, though, and we know it's not going to take him too long. We still have a whole bunch of time in this race, but what is going to, throw that wrench in the gears is you don't seem to have a long amount of sort of standard time with dry, standard time with wets. They're going to have to possibly go in and out of the pits a few times. So for someone like Gulzar, I mean, that could be a good thing, because we've seen him sometimes stay out a little bit longer in the wets and make up some places that way. But for other sort of back markers, that also could be a way to get in front of people.
Yep, and speaking of Gulzar, I think he's getting the move done there. Yes, he has around Hasser. A little bit of cut in the grass there, but I don't think it's anything too egregious. He's going to be eyeing up Darren Wicks for P17. Long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, and hopefully he's got his radio cranked up to max. Javier Marquez in P6 right now. Timothy Flomger trying to chase him down. He was rather close at the start of the lap, but through the S's he may have lost a little bit of grip and has lost some time. And Javier Marquez going to absolutely take advantage of that, starting to reel in Portis.
Yeah, and with Portis right in front of him like that, he does get a little bit of a slipstream, so it doesn't give Flamger the really easy catch-up that he could do on all these straights.
No, absolutely. You're totally right. Darren Wicks as well, finding himself in sort of the same position, but I think he's just going to let Gulzar go. He's not going to try to fight it, although he could do something into the chicane. He does have a slipstream, but I don't know if he's feeling confident enough. It doesn't seem like it. So Gulzar, another position already in the rain. Still not here just yet. Couple minutes out, I think.
Yeah, it also seems like the sort of confidence that almost goes the other direction when you have someone like Gulzar in front of you. You want to brake a little bit harder. That ended up bringing Hasser right back into the mix.
It did, and that's exactly what you want. If you end up losing a position, you find a way to let the two guys in front of you fight, and then take whatever scraps you can get and try and convert that into one, maybe two positions. And that's sort of what's going on here right now with this battle pack forming. 5 to 9, Portis, Marquez, Flomger, Pearson, Brown, really just waiting for someone to make a little bit of a mistake or give them a little bit too much room to work with. And we could be seeing that move happen right here. There's Javier Marquez throwing it down the inside on Kenneth Portis. And now it's going to be a little bit of a four-pack here as we head up the hill through the right-hander. Almost 3 wide there for a moment. On the inside goes Flomger door-to-door down the back straight with Portis. And you can see Pierce waiting with open arms as though he's going to pick up something else. Through the chicane, he finds a little bit of room on the inside. Now the outside comes together with his pseudo teammate, is off the track, is keeping it together. Beautifully done, and Spencer Brown glad to pick up that position as well.
Yeah, it looked like Brown was just waiting in the wings, and he almost seemed to go down the inside once everyone went to the left for that hairpin. It certainly seems like he's not going to hold up and wait for these guys to just fight it through. He's going to try to get right into the battle, even going down the main straight.
Absolutely, that's sort of the trademark of some of the best drivers, is you can wait, but sometimes you don't want to wait. You want to flex how good you are, and that's what's happening there. Andrew Wilson here, P11. Tommy Kogan just ahead, and just like that, the rain is coming down, but it's going to rain for 10 minutes, and then it's going to... sprinklers are going to shut off, so I'm wondering, do you go in? Do you pit, or do you stay out?
I think you just gotta wait for the track to get a little bit messy. But one of the things about this is, we've got a couple battles here and there. There's a few people spread out, but I think that right now might be where you decide how close everyone stays, right? Based on when they pit for tires or not. And so we could very easily spread this whole race out if there's dry for the rest of the race, just because of this one quick shower. And so I think that your position that you're in may be very important right now. You may want to hold on to it and not pit as early as you can.
Yeah, depending on how quickly the track can get wet. It's greasy right now, but you got to think, how much water are these cars dispersing as they drive over? If it's a smaller grid, of course, it's not going to clear up as much, but when you have a grid that's almost 30 cars deep, that line can stay dry a bit longer and perhaps not be affected as much overall compared to, say, a 20-car grid.
Yeah, and the track is down to greasy now, so we should be watching every 30 seconds or so, maybe to a minute, as the track goes through the process of becoming nice and wet. Which will be interesting because it's not cold per se, but it's also not warm. So when it stops raining, it may not just dry up as quickly as you'd like.
Yeah, and with the clouds sticking around as well, that's really going to slow down the drying process. Normally you would be seeing rain and then the sun comes out, helps dry the track when cars aren't around, but when the sun's hiding away, you don't get that luxury, and that's something that you really have to sort of keep mind of even after the rain stops. You may be thinking about pushing it a little bit harder. You think, all right, now that things have really gotten a bit more dry, you don't have to conserve as much, but that can catch a lot of drivers off guard, especially some of the newer ones.
Yeah, I mean, you can already see a couple of drivers making a few more corrections around the turns than, would be required if it was nice and dry and easy.
Exactly, and even over some of these curbs that may not get as much travel time, on slicks, that's basically just driving on ice, and well, you'll possibly see, whoa, there's a dive there from Thomas Pierce onto Spencer Brown. I don't think it worked out all too well. A little bit of bump and grind, but hey, Robin's racing.
And unfortunately for Eduardo Sanchez, he went off in the background, and just now Brian Rasco did too. And you know what? They're both in McLarens, so McLaren in the rain seems to be a problem.
Yeah, but even here at Donington, I mean, how bumpy is this circuit, honestly, compared to everything else? It must feel like a really good test of your suspension. And the McLaren is not one that takes too kindly to changes like that.
Certainly not. And the Ferrari too, which we do not see in this race.
No, we don't, surprisingly. I think we have a couple Ferraris on the grid, but actually, I could be wrong. Either way, though, they are not here, as Sam has pointed out. We have two. We have Frieza.
So it looks like
Friza's here somewhere.
Well, not in this race.
Oh, well, in that case, Thomas Dag gets around Lawrence Lanham, and just behind them it is Hamza Gazar. Ooh, look at that, 10 minutes. It's going to get even heavier.
Oh, geez.
This may be the call.
This is going to be real fun.
This might be.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at people back that are still out there, like all the way up with Palladini, it seems like he's probably slowing down a little bit compared to Loverank. Loverank might be getting, doesn't seem to be losing too much of a gap on Dornelis, but you can look at the times between them as it starts raining, and you're going to see everyone spread out a little bit, except as you then go down the grids, you drop to the people who have green next to their name saying that they went into the pits and switched over to wets, and now we'll have to watch them and see if they can catch back up and blast past some of the people who are sticking on the dries a little bit too long.
Yeah, and some drivers like Sanchez had to go in for damage repairs, so it's a bit different. Oh, there's a bump onto Gulzar. So yeah, this track is really starting to catch some drivers out. Lanham, not really a driver we're used to seeing make contact, at least not on camera as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, we're already seeing some struggles here. Who's in the pits? Marquez in the pits. Wilson's in the pits. We had Flomger, Kogan, Brown, Parody, Rasco, Luke, and Sanchez as well. So for some, they are going to have to go back in eventually because, I mean, rain's going to be heavier in about 10 minutes. Whoa, slide there from Lanham. Oh, that's incredible. That was amazing. That was a great save.
Yeah, it's impressive.
We gotta see that again. Oh, no, it's too far. He got it right at the down, like right where that just sort of undulation is. Beautiful stuff to keep that thing pointed in the right direction, though.
So this is interesting. It seems like you'd expect someone like Flamger, where he's down there in front of most of the other people who have pitted, to be closer to like Marquez and Wilson there, as they have also pitted somewhat recently. But
Yeah.
oh, is it maybe just the timing?
It might
It's
be.
just the
Yeah.
timing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ah.
You know how great this game updates, how quickly it updates.
I was gonna say that just shouldn't happen, you know. Flamger should have been out in front, but I mean, maybe he's gained some spots, maybe not. We'll see how fast he can go compared to Dornelis and Loverank and Palladini when they eventually make this switch. But it is a wet track now, officially.
Yep, and I don't think these cars are really... Ooh, that's close there. Out of the pits comes, I believe that's not Ryan Luke. That's Keith Briscoe. Where is he? There he is. Out of the pits, so yeah, it's wet. It's going to get even wetter. And I'm going to assume we'll see a two-stopper. At least until... I mean, it's going to be on the wets for a while until that dry line starts to form. And then once that starts really getting a lot of cars over it, we've got a Porsche off. And once that starts getting a lot of cars over it, we will be seeing that change back to slicks. But when do you think that's going to happen?
I think probably before the 30-minute from now mark. So, you know, basically around what I would call mid-race, maybe a little bit after that. But I think the thing that a lot of people deal with is just seeing how long they can go with burning red-hot tires. I mean, the Enduro at Imola recently was rain on, rain off, rain on, rain off, and every time it was off, people were talking about their tires going up to 39 psi, and ooh, we have some yellow on the back straight there.
I didn't quite catch it. Oh yeah, the 8 and 666 it looks like. The 8 car driven by, who is that? William No, and the 666 dancing with the devil there has backfired on Ryan Luke a little bit. But nothing too serious, nothing that's really going to cause a virtual safety car.
No, they're all still running, which is good.
Yep.
But yeah, there's certainly still a couple battles going on, but a lot of the battles seem to be interspersed between drivers who are not actually in their positions based off of the pitting.
Oh,
so
that's right. Oh, hold on. We've got the 999 there, the Lamborghini of Clifford, and I believe that was Ryan Lukoff as well. We see Gulzar sort of eyeing up Pierce at the moment. These two guys really giving it as much as they can, but the problem is slick tires on a wet track, and we still have a yellow flag, 501 there. That's Keith Briscoe.
That's Briscoe. He doesn't seem to be moving, though, so that might be something more computer-related?
Possibly. I'm not too certain. Our knowledge only goes so far, unfortunately.
Yes, but we can make up whatever we want.
That's true. He's currently being attacked by garden gnomes. I must fend them off. What a guy. But as he deals with that, Pierce is really not having the easiest time getting Gulzar away from him as they go through the chicane almost side by side in the wet on slicks. That's incredible. But Gulzar backs out, playing the patience game, I think, for a little bit. And then beyond him, I'm fairly certain that is the 27 of Rulo, who is not really in this battle. A lap down, of course, because of the pit stops. But this is the battle for P6 at the moment. Skylo Loverank trying to pull away. No, sorry, that's getting around somebody. That's not Palladini. I thought it might have been. I've been duped. But yeah, like you said, Sam, even with these wet conditions, there are still battles happening. And penalties being dished out, apparently.
Yeah, the penalties coming hard and fast, and, you know, with all these people choosing to go into the pits at different times, we've had a lot of drivers leaving the pits around the same time as other drivers coming down that straight, so that just sets you up for more close battles, but also possibly more yellow flags.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a BMW off there on the side. That's the 502 of Lawrence Lanham. He just came out of the pit, so I'm not quite certain what that's all about. We'll see if maybe he can... Oh, he's back in the pit, so maybe, I don't know, we'll see what's going on there. He's got 10 seconds, Rasco's got 15. Our bot is on break right now, so hopefully he comes back and gives us an update on everything. But, man, this rain is not making it easy at all. Look at how much correction Gulzar has to do.
No, but it's still pretty surprising how many are still out there. I mean, maybe they started with some wet tires and let them get really hot, and now they're doing fine. Or I doubt that. I just think that they're all just trying to stick with it. But we'll see if that pays off.
Yep, and there's Brian Rasco, I believe, getting around Cody Platt. Uh, like we said earlier, that hairpin really a popular spot to overtake. Platt just left the door open. Rasco took advantage of that and has another position, but 15 seconds added on to his time. Rulo has 5, No has 10, Lanham has 10, Sanchez has 15. So, yeah, I don't know. I think some of those might have been for contacts. I know we saw Golzar around, so maybe Sanchez got wrapped up in that, and that's what that's about. But the other ones, I couldn't really guess.
Well, interestingly, I've been zooming around a little bit, and I do see a lot of the, lower end drivers cruising past the higher end guys because the wet's versus dry, but then they get caught. So maybe it is just a matter of being able to make the turn and changing your brake zone.
Yeah, and you have to think, even if they're just running ahead of these faster guys, they're gonna have to go in again at some point to swap those wet tires out because it's not going to work on a dry track. We got a little Tokyo drift there coming out from Dylan Kaiser. Going to drop 2 positions almost immediately because of that. And down the hill we plunge once more.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be interesting to find out if any of the front runners made this
Spencer
sort of big
Brown.
brain move. And he's just got away from anyone else hitting him, which is nice. That's really, really dangerous to do.
Yep, and Tommy Kogan just sends it right between the two of them, picks up 2 positions free of charge without even trying.
Yeah, that was impressive. I sort of thought that from that vantage point, he was going to hit them both.
Well, Tommy Kogan, a master of his craft, and certainly willing to take a couple of risks if it means giving us a bit of a spectacle. Shoutouts to Spencer Brown, though. That was a great save.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that today, I think, with such a wide track and grass on either side. It's really not the, worst case scenario. You're going to smash into walls and destroy your car. So you can recover somewhat, and once you do it a couple times, you'll learn to catch it a lot easier.
Yep, and the thing is, though, Brown's on, I assume, is on wet tires, so the fact that he got a slide like that is very surprising. You normally see that, well, not in wets unless you really send it, but I don't think he gave it too much juice.
Well, you've got to wonder that those who switched over to wets may or may not have practiced or had a setup ready, so their tire pressures may be really far off right now.
Oh, that's true, yeah. So that might be what caught him out. Let's jump around a little bit. We've got Dave Hasser going at it with Timothy Flomger. This is for P11 right now. Flomger does have 15 seconds, and just like that is ahead. So if Flomger just puts in that 1 liter like we talked about earlier in the broadcast, it's going to be an 18-second stop compared to just 3 seconds if it was, just the 1 liter. Jonathan Clifford as well in P8 at the moment. Thomas Pierce is behind him. And I believe up ahead is Braden Thompson in a very good, respectable P7 for him.
Oh, and looks like Sanchez goes off again in the background.
Oh, I can see. Yeah, I saw some of the dirt get kicked up. I am surprised. I don't know, maybe Sanchez hasn't practiced as much as he would have liked, or maybe his setup is a little bit off.
Yeah, I'm just going to blame the McLarens, because I can do that this time.
That's fair. Yeah, as someone who spent his rookie series in the McLaren and then kept driving it afterwards a little bit, and kept driving it a little bit more, I can confirm that, yes, the McLaren is a pain to drive. But what isn't a pain to drive, apparently, for Jonathan Clifford is the Lamborghini. A little bit of a wiggle there out of the final corner. Gets some breathing room. Gets around Thompson, actually. And Javier Marquez as well. What a dive there. Down the inside, recognizes the open door, and just invites himself in. And Clifford not getting the best line. Javier Marquez almost going into the back of him, not once, but twice down the hill. And just behind, Braden Thompson, Thomas Pierce lying in wait. These guys really struggling. Javier Marquez on those wets. Does he make it around the outside? He does, and Clifford backs out.
Yeah, I mean, with Britton Thompson here and Pierce right behind him, they want to be aggressive, and Pierce is coming actually right next to Thompson right now in the background. But both of them have dry tires,
Yeah, they're really
at least
just.
presumably.
Let's take a peek. Or not? That's not what I wanted. This is. So, Thompson is on dries, as is Pierce. So yeah, it's definitely playing a key role, and you saw how quickly, or rather how slowly they were going through that right-hander at the top of the hill.
Yeah, I mean, what's surprising though is a lot of the drivers that pitted early for wets, even when it was a fairly wet track, have not made up as many places as you'd think. Those are the drivers up front who have stuck to their dry tires, are really not just lost, all the time and position that maybe you would sort of hope if you were one of the back markers who pitted earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Ryan Luke is one of them right now, coming under fire from Sanchez, and we'll try to let him around the outside. This is the battle right now. Position 24. Luke doesn't really get that inside to work as well, and we'll just slip behind. However, if he can just stay close and maybe mirror the pit stop, awarded a 3-position 24 because of Sanchez's 15 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said, Sanchez has gone off a few times. I would say follow him close and pick up the pieces.
Absolutely. So, like Rulo, so this is surprising. I think he's on... Yeah, he's on wets, which explains why he's able to just keep up with Gulzar. He was sort of falling back a little bit and then reels him in and then falls back again and reels him back in. So, yeah, that's kind of the difference. Someone like Rulo, who normally isn't really anywhere near Gulzar, is having some fun right now, sticking right behind his fellow Honda.
He went pretty deep there. That was a bit dangerous, but how does that make you feel that you can only catch a guy like Gulzar when you're on wets and he's on slicks in a rainstorm?
That might hurt the ego a little bit if I were behind the steering wheel, if I'm being totally honest. But thankfully, we're here in the booth where it's nice and dry, and we don't have to worry about brake points or turn-in points or gear shifts. Come on.
Nope. I mean, I will tense up a little bit when I see them get just a bit too close for my liking, but that's just racing, and that's one of the beautiful things about it.
Absolutely. And Portis right now has... Whoa, we've got someone off there. I'm not quite certain who that is. It appears to be...
Looked like Lanham.
502. Yeah, it is. Lawrence Lanham has spun out. It's not what he wants. Look at Portis. He's already... I mean, he had a pretty sizable gap to Gulzar, but now, I mean, that's basically diminished. He's got nothing to work with. You have Rulo behind, but he can't really get past because he's a back marker for both of them. And Gulzar, man, the race he's had, it went from decent to bad, and now look at where he's sitting, especially because of pit stops.
Well, also, I mean, Gulzar's going to get past him right here, but if Portis can follow, we've got a 3 Honda race coming up right now.
Right, and Rulo's just
or
there
I guess
for
that's
support.
not real. That's not real life race because there's a 20-second gap.
Okay, wait.
I was hoping the guy in front was who we were looking at.
Hold on, wait. Let me. So here we see Rulo challenging for a top 5 position. Portis on the inside. I'm sure he's like been waiting to hear that. He's like, I'm never gonna hear it, but now he has. He's actually gotten around. So, I mean, even though he's sitting, where is he? 22nd. We'll say he's pseudo 5th.
An overtake's an overtake. I don't care where you are.
Yep, so shoutouts to Rulo. Great job. Tommy Kogan is in a very tricky situation. He's got Braden Thompson up ahead. Spencer Brown's behind him. There's Thomas Pierce in the 7-Up Porsche. And I think there was a bump there onto the Aston Martin, so he's lost a little bit of momentum. Oh, no, that's not Thomas Pierce, excuse me. That is the number 8 of William No. So he's just there also for moral support. Thomas Pierce there, just in the background. Being chased down by Flomger. Kogan in P9 as it stands, but for how long can he do it? Thomas Pierce, P13. Flomger getting really loose there out of the first corner, but could find an overtake as we head down the hill, and yeah, Pierce just backs out.
Yeah, still dry tires for Pierce. Especially Porsche on Porsche, the wet tires are going to win in a situation like this.
Yep, I think that's kind of just fair for really any car when you put them together. Two Audis, one could be, I mean, they're both on wets, it looks like, Kogan and Spencer Brown. If we actually check, yeah, wets for Kogan and wets for Brown. So this is proper wet weather racing, but for everyone else, it's just kind of, well, ice skating.
Yeah, and something just happened to Braden Thompson. He just lost a few places.
Braden Thompson, oh yeah, down P14. Gonna try to reel this one back. Oh, looks like he may have, oh yeah, I can see where he entered the sand trap, so it looks like that. Oh, this is before, oh, very surprising. So it looks like maybe he got a little too much curb or something? I don't know. But yeah, he's dropped from 11th to 14th.
Yeah, it certainly helps for some in the mid-pack to jump up there, especially because now we've got a group in the middle of the dry tires, you know, stayers, I guess, the bullheaded people that think that's going to work out. But I mean, we do have enough up front that are on the same, you know, same idea, but those guys up front are, I would call them aliens to the scale of this, you know, this group.
Yep, keeping it very tidy, especially given the current situation. I thought Spencer Brown was going for something for a second on Kogan. That would have been maybe a questionable move as Kogan gets a little sideways there, and Brown sort of drifting as well in solitude. Dave Hasser into the pit lane. So serve the penalty, maybe get some gas, who knows, but Clifford gets swallowed up by both of the Audis. So in just one corner, Clifford from 8th to 10th almost immediately.
And Gulzar seems to have got a penalty for a collision.
Possibly. The bot's still very much on break at the moment. I don't know how long his breaks usually are. I thought half an hour, but I could be wrong. But that's unfortunate for someone like Gulzar, especially the charge back that he's had.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly someone that will likely stay within or get to within those 10 seconds of the front runners by the end of this race, if not get in front of them. So that does give everyone else around him an opportunity to try to, you know, play it safer, but still be able to know that they're going to end up in front of him.
Yep, and you have to think about who's ahead of him. It's Palladini, it's Lovering, it's Dornelis. And I think Dornelis is really the main competitor to Gulzar when you look at terms of skill and just how consistent and quick those two are. So having 10 seconds is not really what you want to do. And well, what Clifford doesn't want to do is lose any more time, as he's just going to let Flomger by. Flomger, of course, on those wet tires. Clifford knows he doesn't have the same pace, so better to just let it go and get him back at the next pit stop, because eventually it's going to stop raining, and at that point, Flomger's got very limited time when it comes to those wet tires.
I mean, you know, it depends. If you can go long on dry tires through the wet, you can go pretty long on wet tires through the dry. It all really depends on, you know, what temperature you set them at early. So are they going to get high really quickly, or are they going to take a little while? And then also, you know, how much of this track requires you to have a bunch of side slip with really high G-force turns? Because if that doesn't happen, your tires aren't going to get that hot.
That's a lot for these drivers to kind of juggle, and the best ones probably already have it sorted out. Wilson Fernandez just throws his hands up, gives Kogan and Brown a free position. Another driver who's currently out on slicks. He knows the magnitude of the situation. He's not going to fight it, and the rain has finally stopped, although the track remains wet, and it's going to be like that for, I think, a very good while. So
yeah, I think that there's certainly going to be some slick areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Looks
the last
like the leader's going past a yellow right now, too.
Dornelis is on there. Whoa, we've got, who is that? That's the Mercedes of not Lanham. That's Luke off the track. So, getting caught out by something. But remains P25 as Lanham. Oh, I think we may have just seen what gave Luke a bit of a spin earlier on, just dipping on the grass a little too much. Thankfully doesn't follow the same sort of trail he had the last time. However, not really wanting to lose a lot of time. Here's Rulo ahead of Gulzar. That's a phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should just stop right there, you know, cut that clip and send it to him.
There you go. Yep, exactly, 100%. Here's Skylar Loverank with Stefan Palladini hounding him for that position 2, almost into the rear left quarter panel there, almost pitting him. This isn't Need for Speed, but you definitely need some speed if you want to get around this track at the top by the end of it all. Stefano Palladini, a driver who we saw join relatively later in the schedule for North America, but made an absolutely incredible just impact upon joining. Really showed that he is a force to be reckoned with, and well, you're challenging someone like Loverank, you could challenge someone like Dornelis, Marquez, Golzar, Portis, Flomger, Brown, basically anyone in the top 10, and you know, he's really surprised me, to be totally honest.
Yeah, I mean, he jumped out front pretty early on the first race that we saw him in, and he's sort of been like that the rest of the season. He may have had a misstep here or there, but he's definitely belongs up where he's at. What's interesting is, you know, behind him though, so he's pretty close to Loverank, and they're kind of far back from Dornelis, but Marquez is the first driver in the top 6 who actually has wets. So seems to be the only of the top drivers who made that pit stop actually work for him and get through the rain somewhat safer. But is it going to actually turn out for him? We'll have to watch and see.
Well, as this track continues to dry a little bit each lap, he'll have to eventually, if it dries a little too quick, will eventually have to go in. Although there is that wet side of the track. You see that darker patch where the drivers are on. That's the dry line, and you can see sort of the glossy gray on the other end of it. And that's where, if you're on wets and you need to get a little bit more life out of those tires, that's where you're going to try to sit for the most part, just to keep those temperatures down. Because when you're sitting on red circles, well, you're not really going to be moving as much as you'd like.
Yeah, and a nice little side effect of if you're running in front of somebody and the track is still at least slightly wet, you can put a bunch of spray all over their windshield just to really try to make it harder for them.
Just to be a bit of a nuisance. It's always a fun thing to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, the track is already back up to damp, and you can see as we're looking around that the shinier sort of wet areas are disappearing very quickly, much quicker than I thought, but I guess the track has warmed up pretty significantly too.
Yep, so we'll have to see how long drivers opt to stay out on these wet tires. Fernandez goes into the pits. I assume that's just for a bit of fuel and get back out there. I mean, this grid is all sorts of mixed up just because of how things have played out. William, no, I think he's got, I can't quite see that. Darren Wicks behind him. So it looks like an overtake done at some point. And as I say that, decides to cut the grass. I don't think Porsche makes lawnmowers, do they?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, it must be one of those old-timey collectors. And Brian Luke decides to just take a position. Why not? Overtake, even though it doesn't really count. But always good to see. There was one thing. So Dornelis is pitted. Palladini's going in right now. So this, I think we're going to be seeing just the quick splash and dash for the, like the top split or the top running drivers, because the track is damp and will continue to dry up, and then we're going to have a whole bunch of people who have to go back in because those wets are not going to be good anymore. Right now, Loverank, Golzar, Portis, Clifford, Pierce, Thompson, and Wicks, I believe, are the only drivers that have yet to pit, and it looks like it is Darren Wicks. Look at this. This is a sight I don't think he's ever thought he'd be a part of. A nice big pack of drivers, and you see Clifford just behind, and well, that's a name he's not really too familiar with, I think, on circuit.
No. I mean, with only 31 minutes left here now, you know, maybe that is the strategy that's going to get people like Wicks back up towards the mid-pack. But the interesting thing is to see where Dornelis and Palladini came out, you know, after they pitted. And, you know, watch maybe, you know, Marquez is now moved up. He might take the lead when Loverank goes in. Golzar is going to go in, and where all they get sort of sorted back to. That still doesn't really tell the whole story because, like we're saying, if there's a second pit stop for the guys who went on wet earlier, it'll be interesting to see if they actually made up ground while they were on the wet tires or not. That's what we're going to find out in the next round of pit stops, not really right now.
Well, I think we'll be seeing those pit stops coming sooner rather than later. The sun has returned, so that is going to expedite the drying process, and I think it's going to hurt quite a number of drivers. Golzar, though, will probably not be part of them because, well, despite being on those very slick tires, he is still managing to stay ahead of Rolu, who does want to have a little bite at Captain Canada, but knows that it will be all for naught, unfortunately. He's been on wet, so he'll have to go back into the pit lane, the number 27 Honda there, at some point in the race. But for right now, more than happy to stay out and get as much use out of those wets as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately for at least us watching, we can see the radar goes out to about 30 minutes now and doesn't show any more rain. So yeah, it really seems like the people who are able to make the slicks last throughout that little thunderstorm we had there may have been on the right trajectory. I mean, maybe it was impossible to do otherwise if you don't have that skill, but right now it's looking like that was the right plan.
Yep, and well, Wilson is definitely one of them who is trying to make his plan work. He had a nibble there at Thompson into the final corner, out of the penultimate corner. Didn't work out all too well, and you can see Thomas Pierce just up ahead as well. I can't really call this race right now because of just where we are and what the weather's looking like and how the track is going to change again, and we're going to see another round of pit stops.
Yeah, and also if you look ahead a little bit, there's a couple people within a second, within a tenth of a second, up in P4, 5, and 6. So, I mean, we do have a battle going on in the top group here.
Yep, 10th
Oh,
Portis.
that looked like a little bit of a tap. No, okay.
No, it seems
Safe.
to have worked itself out. There is Flomger is getting a little bit racy here, throws it down the inside into the final corner, and he is going to make that move stick. Kogan and Brown just behind, and there's Portis. He goes into the pit lane. Your top four, I believe, are going to go into the pits. Lovering, Marquez, Golzar. So Flomger is promoted up into position number 1. Congratulations. Unfortunately, if you take a look at the HUD, your tires are wet, so you will not hold on to it for long. Same with Brown, same with Kogan. They'll come in at some point. Maybe if they get lucky, the track doesn't dry as quickly and they can use those outside lines to keep the temps down, but I don't know. 27 minutes? It's not looking likely.
Well, we can see how well the whole plan, at least for getting on wets, paid off for Marquez. You know, he was able to cover when some of the dry tire, holdouts finally pitted. He pitted at the same time, was able to get out. So now his position at P7 is probably more realistic. We can actually see that he is probably that 1 or 2 positions back from where we think the leaders will be with Dornelis and, Palladini.
Yep, and we see more pit stops coming through for drivers that have already been told they've cleared their mandatory stop. And a couple drive-thrus as well. Sanchez picked up one. Rulo has one. Those are going to be for track limits. I believe Luke is back in the pits again. Noah's back in the pits. Wilson is in the pits. Clifford going in for his mandatory stop. And outside of that, it's sort of calming down, all things considered. Kevin Parody into the pit lane, the driver we haven't talked about too much this evening. And still one of the best liveries on the grid, if I do say so.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially
it looks like, I was going to say, Golzar cleared his penalty.
Yeah, he did. So Golzar's in P12 right now, chasing Portis down. This is going to get close. I wonder how much different things would have been had Golzar not been caught up in that spin earlier on in the race, and how all of these penalties are going to factor in after the race concludes. Of course, things are not going to be finalized at that point. They are going to be dealt with by the stewards and all those other wonderful people who put so much work into making this Sprint Series what it is. So we'll of course be giving you updates on that when we get them before next week. Of course, next week you're going to be at Hungary on a track that personally I've never really had too much fun driving on, but honestly that's a skill issue if anything. But for a lot of these drivers, I know a good number of them have Hungaroring as one of their favorites. Maybe not their number 1, but definitely up there.
What's interesting, I don't really favor it, but it was one of the first that I learned well. And so I am able to have a couple real battles there, which makes it all the more interesting for me. But one thing you touched on, with the stewards and the other volunteers we have here, just so people know if they're watching, because we combine these two splits, there are drivers that are not out there tonight that are taking over some of the stewarding. And so they really need to just be, lauded for their efforts.
Exactly. They give so much to just to this organization, to this racing scene. It really, you can't thank them enough, even if you just say it every single day. And then you have someone like Sam here who goes and races, and then he comes back and hops in the booth, gives us some insight. Of course, not tonight, but hey, things happen, and well, I'm glad to have him as always.
Uh, and look who's got a drive-through.
Oh, Gulzar.
Didn't see Gulzar coming.
Come on, man. He's what's Captain Canada doing? I don't know, maybe he's having some fun right now. Maybe he thinks, oh, I've got, no penalty points. Not like he really has any to begin with. It's like, I might as well have a little bit of fun. So he'll have to get that served. Rulo is serving his drive-through as well. Yep, there goes Mr. Canada into the pit lane. And, well, Spencer Brown is current leader, although the track is greasy, so it's going to be time to pit again for the 12.
Well, that's interesting. With the penalty for Flamger, wasn't he leading? So what was the collision he caused?
I'm not too certain. I that's kind of the thing we should talk about as well, with the live stewarding that we do have at these races. They look at any sort of incident as much as they can. If you've ever raced in the OOR, or maybe you've watched a friend of yours who does race in the Sprint Series, when there's a collision of some sort, you'll always hear somebody call out their number, and the stewards will look at it from all angles and do their best to really give out the appropriate punishment. And sometimes you have something that happens lap 1 and you don't see a penalty come in until 7-8 laps later. That we've seen it in a couple races where there's been multiple laps between incident and penalty.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of just a normal race thing too. It's not even when you have a small number of volunteers that are working to basically pull their hair out just to get it done. It happens in, we saw F1 like hours later. It's just sort of what happens. So you have to keep going. You have to just sort of assume that whatever's in your corner right now is what it's going to be until you know otherwise. So you have to keep trying. Right now with the 10 seconds, Flamger has that. He knows that he's got to probably pit again to get over to his dry tires. Still have that 10 seconds taken care of, and wherever he comes out, that's where his fight will be for the next 20 minutes, depending on when he pits. But at least he's got some time there, and he's doing pretty well to be on the dry still. I wonder how many of those drivers up front are feeling the heat.
I do not know, but what I do know is that as someone who has Alonso on his fantasy team, very happy with the outcome. But anywho, yeah, so, look at that, Flamger, perfect timing right into the pit lane. Same with Spencer Brown in, so this could be, well, obviously for Flamger, it is going to be for the penalty. He'll want to get that served and just get back out there. I don't know if he's going to be picking up fuel. Brown, I believe, is going to be hopping over. Yeah, he's on wet, so he's got to go to dries. So that'll cost him a little bit of time. And we'll see where he gets spat out. So, Renato Dornelis, I mean, he's leaving this race. When is he not?
I mean, you have to think about this, right? If you did plan to just do a splash and dash, which we said is only a few seconds, then if you were able to stick on dry tires the whole time, every time you swap tires, that's 30 seconds. So those who have had 2 pits have a minute versus your few second stop. So you were playing with about 55 seconds of being caught while you were on dry through the rain. Seems like it has worked out for him and a few others at the front.
Yep. So yeah, Dornelis is on dries. Palladini, P2 right now, also on dries. Loverink is on dries. Marquez, Portis, Brown, Flamger, Kogan, who's actually... Oh, sorry, he's ahead right now. They're getting through some back markers. Flomger, Gulzar. So yeah, it looks like everybody is on dries. Just gonna click on through. I don't see wets. Yeah, so everybody has either stayed on dry tires or has swapped back over to their dry tires from the wets. Let's look at Brian Raskow. P14 at the moment. Dave Hasser is behind, or it's showing P15, so it looks like there has been a slight swap. As that's the Aston Martin there of Dave Hasser down in P15 right now. All right, things have updated. We're good to go. Rulo in the pits. Another drive-through for him. Man, it's just not been his evening.
Well, I mean, he was fighting with Gulzar for so long, clearly.
Oh, yeah, I got to take a break. It's very tiring. I mean, obviously he's giving Gulzar a chance to run because, you know, how much he hounded him for that position. But, whoa, there's Raskow. That was a sketchy moment. And Spencer Brown behind Portis. This is a chance for a top 5 finish for the number 12 Audi. But Portis is not going to make it easy at all. Two drivers who we've seen go at it a fair bit, I think, this season. And Brown sitting in P6. And the next Pro-Am is Dave Hasser in P15. Brown, one of those drivers we see punching well above their weight.
And another thing that, you know, we see happened after all these pit stops and the mess up with the rain, sort of like I was predicting earlier, is that we do have a lot of cars together, but almost none of them are actually around people who they're battling. There's maybe one or two here that are within a second of the next person in place, but a lot of them have these 4, 5, 6 second gaps. So, you know, there's a lot of blue flags going on. There's a lot of just sort of dead space going on with not much time left. I don't think we'll see too many big changes in the race here, but maybe we can somehow red flag and extend the race because it looks like rain's coming in 30 minutes.
I was about to mention we got rain coming in 30, and track is optimum, so there's no longer any wet lines. It's all dry lines from here on out, and drivers are going to be very happy with that. Of course, going to make these tires last until the end. Dornelis with the fastest lap, a 26:47. Not as quick as Alvarado's pole lap from almost 2 years ago, which was a 25:66. Of course, there have been changes to these cars. They have been buffed. They have been nerfed. They've had tweaks happen to kind of offset any changes that are made. So not really indicative of the true pace overall, but what we're seeing right now, if you look at sort of the drivers' laps in general, you can get a pretty good sense of what they're running. And with the track drying, times are going to start coming down pretty significantly. I think a lot of personal bests are going to be set.
Yeah, well, it certainly looks like the fight for P5 here and a few cars up to fight for P3 is definitely close. So, and even we've got Tim Flamger coming up on the fight for P7. So it seems to be there's 3 battles basically in a row, spread out by a couple seconds. All of these 2 cars having a good old fight. It'll be interesting to watch any one of them.
Yep, Tommy Kogan starting to worry about Flomger. He'll be on the outside for the chicane, but it's going to cut back to the inside. But Flomger thinks better of it and decides to sit behind. He knows that the Porsche doesn't really compare top-end-wise to the Audi, so he'll use that slipstream and just sort of bide his time. Maybe been studying Kogan, figuring out where he's stronger, where he's weaker, and forming a plan off of that. Pulling the trigger too early is going to make your lap miserable. Pulling it too late might, well, lose you the position overall. And, whoa, big slide there from the number 19, but nothing that Flomger can't handle. He's got that pro rating for a reason, and showing it off here tonight.
I was going to say, I don't know if this track really requires too much downforce. So one of the Porsche's, you know, capabilities to sort of keep up pace is to remove as much of the downforce as you can. As long as you can keep catching those little slides and such, then, you know, you might be able to keep up with the faster cars. That's what I think we might be seeing from Flamger there.
Maybe I think it's a little. We could guess, I think, for right now. And while we were sort of worrying about all that, Lovering has gotten around Palladini for position number 2. So Palladini is, of course, on track for a podium, but the problem is, there's this pesky little BMW behind him, driven by Marquez, who is, I think, getting a lot more pace. Stefano Palladini's last lap, a 1:29.3. His personal best is a 27.1. Marquez, 27.87. His best is 27.73. So Marquez is running roughly where he normally is. And look at that. He's just reeling him in. Palladini is really struggling right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would only expect this if he was still on wets for some reason, but I'm fairly certain he was with the same group of dries up front.
Yeah, no, he's been on dries this whole time. He hasn't, well, except for obviously fuel, but and there's that little cut we see on the chicane. But yeah, no, he's been running. It's just, I don't know, maybe is not as confident here or something. Javier Marquez sitting right under the wing of the Honda, so he could be looking for a move, maybe at the end of the front straight. I'm not certain, of course. It isn't really the longest front straight in the world, unfortunately, and well, there it is. So for the time being, Palladini hangs on to P3, but he's got to do it for another 14 minutes, and that's going to seem like 14 hours if you're in his seat.
Well, you know, it's the cliche, but it always makes sense when you're watching these things that, you know, it's one thing to catch a car and it's another to pass. Everyone will say it. We always say it. But it's true. I mean, Palladini might be struggling, but he's playing the defense pretty well.
Oh, and speaking of defense, Kogan having to really use all of his experience right now, keeping Golzar at bay. This is the battle for P8, and that's actually giving Flomger a chance to build a gap, but the problem is once Golzar finds his way around the number 55, how much longer is it going to be before Flomger is in a similar position as Kogan?
Well, with 13 and a half minutes left, I'm sure, you know, Flomger knows how fast Golzar is, but he's no slouch himself, so...
Oh, look at this.
13 minutes. Oh, wow.
That was close.
Almost had him down the inside.
I was expecting too wide for a moment, but no, it's Marquez. So, yeah, Marquez has a lot of pace. He's lapping almost a full second ahead of Palladini, and that's translating beautifully, but he's just got to put those finishing touches on, and, well, 13 minutes, definitely plenty of time to do that, and Tommy Kogan is in sort of the same position because Golzar has not been leaving him alone. Even when he loses time, he just finds it again. And Kogan, running a bit wide there, opens up the inside line. What do we see over the crest? I think, if I can get my buttons right, Golzar does get the move done. So Kogan drops a position, and now Flomger could be in the firing line. And that's not what he wants. 12 and a half minutes to go.
Yeah, I mean, that entire point that they just went around, if you keep the inside line for those turns, you're going to make the pass. That's just a point where that's going to happen, right? It's not a switchback. It's not something where you can really go around the outside and keep power down. That's one of the things about this track, is with it being so flat and not really having a lot of cambered areas, you don't have the opportunity to sort of go around the outside and make it work.
Yep, it's sort of just timing your moves properly and working on just chipping away at the gap, like we're seeing right now with Marquez and Palladini. Marquez, a huge dive down the inside into the hairpin. He's going to plant it on the apex. There's a bump there from Palladini, but both of these drivers able to get away with it. I don't know if the stewards are going to be looking at that, but if it stands, Marquez could be on the top or on the third step of the podium by the end of this race.
I think that was maybe a little bit aggressive by Palladini, but it didn't seem to hurt anybody, so I don't think anything's going to come of it. But, I mean, you know, it's just Marquez waiting and waiting, picking his moment, the opportune moment. Came out and he took it, and now he's moved up. I don't think he's got much time to chase after P2, but, you know, at least he can be happy to be on the podium.
Well, 7 seconds is the gap. Could bring it down. Loverink's last lap was a 27.5 compared to the 28.9 of Marquez. Of course, that was with some argy-bargy. So we'll see what the true pace looks like in a couple of laps. Dylan Kaiser is chasing down Cody Platt for P17, and it looks like he's got a lot more drive there through the chicane. Pulls in quite close, and he is going to pick the inside line. I think he tried to feign a dive down the inside, but Platt a bit clairvoyant to it.
Well, he certainly kept that tight inner line. He played it well, but Platt just defended perfectly.
Yep, and Jonathan Clifford is going to get through. So for Dylan, unfortunately, does have to wait a while. Maybe could use the 999 there of Clifford to get closer and maybe sort of use him as a screen almost and get past.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're in the right position on the track to give a blue flag pass really, really nice and easy and sort of lose the least amount of time compared to maybe right here where Platt might lose a bit as he slows and slows going through turns, that can mean that he's going to get caught up very quickly just because that happened at different parts of the lap.
And he did get caught. Kaiser just slipped on by and grabbed the free 17th. But the problem is he doesn't get the best run out of the corner. They're going to come together. Is that going to be looked at? And Cody Platt drives off. I wonder if Kaiser's going to call that one out. It seemed like a little bit egregious in terms of pulling off something.
Oh, I don't know. I thought Platt was alongside. I think Kaiser turned in on him. He should have known he was going to be there. At the very least, knowing that turn has such a long, patient time to get around, he should have known that there was going to be, some contact or some very close driving if he had turned in then. I think he made the wrong choice there.
Well, that'll be for the stewards to decide, not for us. We're just commenting on everything. Thomas Pierce running in the top 10. Look at the front end of Fernandez's car. That is not looking too good for the Brazilian.
He's just getting some extra cooling there. It got a bit hot after the rain.
Of course, yeah. Of course, the Mercedes struggling with heating issues. Surprising though. Of course, he finished third overall in the blue split before the merger, so to see him this far back is very surprising. So I'm guessing he may have rear-ended somebody at some point. We didn't see it, if we did, we wouldn't be questioning it. But despite the damage, I think he's doing a pretty good job of keeping up with Pierce.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's some tracks that certain damage, or even just the damage that you see because it's, this game and they might have not corrected it, that it's just not there. And it just doesn't really affect you as much. And of course, there's some times where you can see 3 seconds of damage on your MFD and it doesn't look like anything, but somehow your steering wheel is 45 degrees to the left, and, well, you just got to deal with it.
Well, let's see what the wheel's looking like for Fernandez. It looks pretty straight and true. I think for him that's good. There might be a little bit. I think it's just general sort of wheel settling. So yeah, it looks like despite the front end damage, Fernandez is not having too many problems with this Mercedes.
Yeah, and looking a little bit further down, we've got a drive-through for Rasco. That's going to mix up the order behind him for a little bit.
Yep, got 3 laps to serve that. Here's Cody Platt having to let Renato Dornelis through for his position, and behind him, look at that, Dylan Kaiser right back into the mix. So despite turning into him, or getting turned into, Kaiser is already back on the hunt.
Yeah, I mean, they are sort of dealing with these blue flags, which, like I said, if you hit it at the right time, this is going to be sort of a slinky motion where, Kaiser from behind can let the blue flag go in a better position maybe and catch up to Platt, and then vice versa. It really makes it for just sort of a chess game, like maybe if I slow down a tad, if I'm in the front, I can let the blue flag go on this straight, or maybe if I really try to take this turn harder than I have been the last couple laps, I can get to that next point before the blue flag comes by. It's a bit dangerous, sometimes you think maybe I can brake later to make this work, and then you end up, I don't know, flipping over 1,000 times, but sometimes that's what you got to take the risk.
Yeah, a lot of risk versus reward here. In the OR, and just in general as well. But what's happened?
Platt ended up going deep into the hairpin, so that fight is over.
Well, let's take a look. And you were just talking about braking later. I'm sure you were more talking about the whole flipping part, but braking later is absolutely what Platt just dealt with there and lost the position. Well,
Yep, we only have 5.5 minutes left now, and looks like things are not quite settled for Fernandez and Pierce up ahead. But everywhere else, it seems to be at least a couple seconds between the drivers. It doesn't seem like anyone's really made some inroads if we look ahead at the fight we thought might come with Golzar and Flamger. And even up in front, Marquez does not seem to close down Loverink enough.
no, Dornelis still just in a world of his own. He's got a 26:47 for that fastest lap. The only person close to him, from the looks of it, is Loverank. Fernandez, despite the damage, throws it down the inside through the chicane, now to the outside. Pierce with a bit of a hip check. That pushes the Brazilian out of the way, but the problem is we're heading down to the hairpin. Fernandez doesn't want to fight it there. Maybe on exit, keeping it really tight on the apex. But Pierce's run out of the corner is a little bit better. Fernandez looks to the inside for a moment, now swaps to the outside. Maybe a little bit of a switchback here onto the front straight. No, it isn't. These two really getting impatient with each other.
Well, I think what you're seeing there is the Porsche is so easy to get the tail to rotate around that things like hairpins are really taken better if you can, set it up right. And then having a Mercedes have to swing its whole body around and get on the gas and try to just chase you down with power is not going to work so well on these shorter straights.
No, definitely not. And that's probably what's currently just in the back of their heads. They both know each other's cars pretty well, I assume. So, knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your opponent's car and your own goes a long way in determining if you can overtake and when you can overtake and how you can overtake.
Yeah, and much like the Platt and Kaiser race we were watching earlier, you can see now our race leader is coming closer into this battle. So these guys are going to have to deal with blue flags coming soon.
Yep. And Loverink as well, using Dornelis. He's got Clifford ahead. He's going to have to get around him at some point. Kevin Parody is coming under fire right now as we see Dylan Kaiser making up some time. So Kaiser, despite getting bopped down, has had no problems. I think Platt was really his only roadblock as he decides that he wants a little bit of Canadian bacon, but he's got 3 minutes to do it and a few laps to go here at Donington Park. And I gotta tell you, I am ready for a lot of these battles to come down to the wire, especially in this sort of midfield pack. And possibly Loverink on Dornelis. You can see how close he is. It could happen.
Yeah, that's maybe Dornelis just taking it a little bit easy, or if he had to get through some traffic or something, but it looks like they're relatively in the clear. So this is possibly catching.
Well, when we're lapping at about 1:27, we're looking at, I think, 2 laps left in this race. And yeah, it's gonna, if it is blue flags, then for Loverink, he's gonna hope that Dornelis gets held up enough to where he can make a move stick. Of course, Clifford got out of the way relatively quickly, so that gave him a chance to close up. So let's take a look here. Oh yeah, Dornelis, I think, is starting to pull away a little bit, and also catching up with, well, his teammate, Wilson Fernandez, and is one of his opponents, Thomas Pierce, as these guys are still debating who's going to take home P10.
Sort of unfortunately here, right? You have this battle that's so close, and they're going to have these blue flags come in and mess it up. Whereas if you could just wait like one more lap as Dornelis passes the finish line and we have the last lap, if you're in front of the leader, they would have one more lap to fight.
Yep, and Dornelis throws on those flashers, wants to get his teammate out of the way, and for Wilson Fernandez, that might seal it for him. Incredibly unfortunate, and with Loverink behind, I'm not certain if they'll be able to claw back. We are on the final, or no, we might have, I think we're going to have one more lap if Dornelis doesn't get this lap done as quickly. So yeah, I think we have one more. So for Fernandez and Loverink, there may be a final chance as the BMW there of Loverink heads around the outside. And Thomas Pierce is going to have to deal with Dornelis at some point. And Loverink as well. Ooh, that's very close there.
Yeah, and if we look down the list at other people within, a second or two here, we've got the Lovering Dornelis coming up. Brown on Portis might be pretty close near the end. And looking all the way down to Kaiser taking on Parity. We do have a couple battles to take a look at.
Yep, Kaiser, I think, looked for a door there through the chicane, but didn't quite find it. It was looking like a little bit of an apparition. I think there might not be enough time. I think this might actually be the final lap. I think Dornelis may have it. We'll see. 5 seconds. And I think that's it. Yeah, around the final corner. So Renato Dornelis is going to draw first blood here in the finals. Takes it home. Top step of the podium for him. Familiar territory. Lovering crosses the line in P2. Javier Marquez. Beautiful stuff out of the Colombian. P3. Stefano Palladini. Another Brazilian in the top 5, has just one more corner to go through, and then Kenneth Portis is quite a ways back, but if he can just keep everything sorted out, he will be in that top 5, although Spencer Brown could pick up something should a mistake be made. There's Brian Rasco behind. He's not really going to have a chance to make any moves happen, but a really good race for him. Timothy Flomger come home in P7. Hamza Galzar, he started just in P10, and unfortunately after his spin, good enough for P8 though, so not a position he's used to being in. So if he wants to challenge Dornelis for the title, he is going to have to put a lot of work in next week at Hungary and the week after at Barcelona, but still a very respectable result. Tommy Kogan in P number 9 for the double 5 Audi, and then Thomas Pierce, there he is, has finished P10, has held off the charge from Fernandez and splits the Brazilian from his teammate as we go dark. And we are finished here at Donington Park for the first round of 3 for the finals. What a race we had.
Yeah, certainly with the weather there and the combination of splits with a couple new drivers being able to race against some other of their same level. I mean, that's why you see someone like Gulzar not be able to make it all the way back up to the front.
Yep, and that's the thing with the Sprint Series, is when you have your own split, you get used to those people you race with. Obviously, someone like Palladini just figures it out immediately, but yeah, with those mixed, or with the split merger rather, you're racing with people you haven't had the pleasure of racing with just yet. And yeah, so Gulzar couldn't recover, but let's take a look at the final results, at least for right now, before the race or the stewarding team and whatnot come through and confirm it all. So Dornelis on the top step, as per usual for him. It's just about a second and a half head of Loverink, and then Marquez makes it onto the podium. For the Pro-Ams, it is going to be Brown, Hasser, and Parity. Very good result from the number 23. And then amateur class, it's Platt, it's No, it's Luke. I believe we may have lost, we did end up losing a few drivers, Wilson, Lanham, and Briscoe, dipping out a bit early, but if this race is anything to go off of, I think the rest of these next 2 races are going to be just as, if not more, chaotic.
Oh yeah, hopefully. I mean, we'll see if the weather can play into it a bit, but certainly anything that comes will be fun.
Yep, it'll certainly be a sight to behold once we get there. And before we head on out, of course, one final shout out to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 12 of the Sprint Series out of Melbourne. Sim racing supplier, one of the biggest in the country. Australia and New Zealand, they're servicing that 100%. Anything outside of those borders, it's going to be a quick email, and they'll be more than happy to do some business with you. And of course, our OR Patreon members do get 5% off their in-store purchases. Sim racing equipment not cheap by any means, and that discount code is going to help you out a lot. But Sam, any final closing thoughts before we get things shut down for tonight?
Well, I certainly wasn't going to do too well, so I had a good time watching. I hope everyone else did, and I can't wait to get back into it. You know, Hungaroring could be something I could go at, and I hope that you'll be kind to me if I'm down there on the track. But it was a great time talking with you and watching such a fun race.
Absolutely. I think I don't think you could have scripted a better night if you tried. So we'll see who can carry the mojo next week, and well, who's gonna drop the bottle a little bit. But on behalf of myself, Sam, and everybody here at the OOR, I'd like to thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed your stay. Remember to like and subscribe for these races. 2 more rounds for North America to decide the overall champion. It's going to be Hungaroring and then Barcelona to round things out. But until next time, as always, stay safe, stay beautiful. We'll see you next time.
I'm just calling to say I